I've been talking a lot about the stage one of sleep, hypnagogic liminal dreaming space here lately. And then this morning, I was doing my monthly sensory deprivation tank float session at Dream Float Hawaii over here in Oahu. And I noticed a little wrinkle about the practice that I thought was worth bringing up that essentially gets at how much focus or attention do you need to have on the space in order to maintain it. Before getting to that, though, I wanted to talk a little bit about Dream Float Hawaii itself, where I'm so glad they're still around, man. We almost lost that place. And if they did end up shutting down, at least off the top of my head, I think that's the only official approaching spa level setup that we have for float tanks here in the state. Like at least 10 years ago when I was trying to find a float tank to go to, there were some other options, but they were run out of people's houses where some guy had to set up in their garage, and sometimes they'd be open to the public. But this was the only real official one, been open for a decade plus. But Jeff, the old owner of it, he was ready to move on. He was going to shut it down. And there was a moment when he was looking for new buyers or owners where he floated the idea past me. And believe me, man, I was interested. Of course, I would love to own my own float tank place with a real spa level, high quality cold plunge and everything like that in a beautiful location. But who am I kidding, man? I can't afford that shit. We didn't have the time either to invest into it, so we had to let that opportunity pass by. But luckily, one of the other regular floaters did jump on the opportunity and they picked it up. So today was my first time getting to meet the new owner. I really wish I remembered his name, man. I'm so bad at doing that kind of shit, but really cool guy. Something kind of funny that happened is at first, when I saw him, he looked kind of familiar to me, but I wasn't too sure if we met each other at some float tank party they had at some point over the years. He didn't immediately recognize me either. But then when I came out the tank, he went out to his car while I was floating and ended up seeing my car. And then I have my Lucid Explorer sticker on it. And then once he saw that name, he went, oh, hey, we did meet where his first float ever, he said he came by with his friend. And so when they were coming in for their first session, I happened to be finishing my session. So I was just chilling out in the front, chatting with Jeff. And so the first time I met him, I gave him my whole spiel on, lucid dreaming, how I like to use the tank myself. I'm sure I talked about some hypnagogic shit like I'll be talking about here in a second. But it was just kind of funny to, have all of that stuff happen and click, after I got out the tank. Anyway, so when it comes to this whole liminal dreaming space and how much attention you need to have on the state in order to maintain it, what I noticed today is, so as I was floating, of course, I was prioritizing hypnagogia work as I typically like to do in the tank. What I noticed is, you don't have to be 100% locked in on the image to keep it there and steady. And I don't know if this is like a real scientific fact. I've definitely heard it said many a times in a way that makes it seem like it's a fact. But you ever heard that saying where, us as humans, we can only focus on one thing at a time and you can't truly multitask? I mean, I would beg to differ in this sense because, what I did notice is as I was floating, I'll be in the state, I'm seeing the image flash and pop up, so I'm past the really early stages of hypnagogia where it just looks like a center point or soft diffuse light or whatever, an actual flash or part of an image. But when I would see it, I would still be thinking in the back of my head oh, I'm kind of there, I'm a little bit uncomfortable, right? At one point my nose was itching, I wanted to scratch it, but I didn't want to move to break the immersion. And while I was kind of going through this whole other steps in my head, I was still able to see these images pop and flash up. And now I never really got into a really deep stage one to sleep hypnagogic state over the entire hour that I was in there. It was mostly just kind of dip in, see it for a little while, disappear, then it would come back, kind of going along with my breath to one degree or another. But yeah, I thought it was interesting how you can kind of multitask in your head and think about other stuff while you are still paying attention and maintaining this lucidity within this liminal dreaming state. There was a little bit, I was playing around with control to some aspect here too. So I think this is a really good way to start learning how to control this liminal dreaming space is once you start having the actual images start to pop up in your hypnagogia. If you can notice the parts today, right, one of the first things I was seeing was stuff that looked like Battlefield 6. I've been watching a whole bunch of video game shit on that new game coming out. I was listening to it on my drive out there and everything, so it was really on my mind. And so I would see kind of part of a Battlefield type image, and then it would disappear, typically on the inhale. Exhale, it would come back, and it would just kind of keep building and progressing off of that one image. But then if I wanted to change it, you can kind of just blank your mind out and then just see what pops up after that. So like I know at one point I was doing that, I was trying to change it. Instead of being like a battlefield area, I saw like looked like a corner of a bus stop. And so I'd build that out a little bit. I wanted to see some people, so I start, trying to anticipate seeing some people in the scene and get some people to pop up in it. That all disappears. But essentially, I was just playing around in that, going back and forth for, probably took me like maybe 10 minutes at the most to get into the state. Then I basically just stayed there, kind of going back and forth, playing around with the different images that would pop up for the next 45 minutes, essentially, until the music went off and I had to go ahead and wake up. But yeah, so you can kind of multitask in this state. You can be watching these imagery while thinking like, other stuff in your head, like, hey, my nose is itchy. Or another thing I was worrying about is getting like the hypnagogic jerk, because that's really sucks to do in the tank, because then you get like water in your eyes and it's so salty that it burns a lot. But yeah, rambled on for a bit. Anyway, we'll just leave it with that. Until the next video, keep your liminal dreaming practice legit.